Greetings, Scotty Reed here with a Black Talk Radio commentary. This particular video, I want to take a look. I want to revisit the topic of these so-called melanated aboriginals that's going around telling black folks or African Americans that they don't have any kind of connection to Africa and floating around a bunch of theories without any kind of evidence to even make it a theory. For example, the latest one I just heard was that indigenous black people or melanated people, because remember they're trying to convince those who classify themselves as black or African Americans that you aborigines, you was here when the Europeans got here and they didn't bring over any Africans to enslave them. They enslaved the people that's right here, and then they shipped those people off to Africa and then even shipped them right back here and called them Africa. I mean, just the ridiculousness of why would you even ship some people at great cost all across the Atlantic to Africa only to bring them back and then change their names and call them something else. And again, indigenous and aboriginal just simply means, well, they're used interchangeably, but the correct word when you want to talk about the earliest settlers or inhabitants of a continent like North or South America, you would call them aborigine. That means the earliest people to inhabit the land, those who migrated here in that first wave out of Africa. All of this has been documented and confirmed by DNA evidence, but that's one of the crazy theories without evidence. They want you to believe that aboriginals, no tribal names or names of these people, collectively what they was going by, were put on ships and sent to Africa. Well, where are the ship manifests? Where are the cargo ship manifests that they were shipped over to Africa to be enslaved? And enslaved by who? And then to be shipped back to the Americas to be, and their names changed, say, now these Africans. That it is no plausibility to that whatsoever. I don't know why a person would choose to go down that rabbit hole or aren't able to see the holes in this fiction. I'm trying to be nice, but anyway, I made a video with one of these people insulting us on our own social media platform, and so I made a video. It's the last video that I made for BTR News where I was calling this out, and this person specifically in our social media community calling him out. And following in some comments, a person mentioned, and it isn't the first time I heard it, that Malcolm X knew we was Aborigine. And see, he said it right here. And so I had not seen that. Oh yeah, what else did they say? Remember when he said that Plymouth Rock landed on us and we didn't land on it with the Pilgrims? And see, that's saying that we was already here. It is totally out of context. Anybody who has studied the life of Malcolm X know that this man has always been African identified. Even if we just go to when he joined the Nation of Islam, which was teaching African cultural roots to black people. That's what Malcolm said made it so popular among black people here in America, was because of their stress on African cultural roots. So I mean, if you take his life in totality, instead of taking a couple of sentences out of context to support your unsupportable theory by any evidence, that's practicing deception. And just by you practicing that sort of deception means that the masses of people should dismiss you right away as a charlatan, because why would we need to be a deceptive or misconstrue with a famous person, a person with some notoriety like Malcolm X? Why would you chop up their words and then try to make it fit into your theory in order to sell it to other people? People perhaps that don't have the time to do the research, although I find that to be a poor excuse. But so I began investigating this, and I just put in Malcolm X Aboriginal and did a search. And here's one of the articles that came up. Let me change to this article. Oh, it says, let me get to the top of this page. A report, new DNA proves African Americans are in fact indigenous aborigines of America. Again, there's no DNA evidence proving that. People get their individual DNA done, and it tells them what percentage, especially we're talking about black people here in America, what percentage of African they are, what percentage of whatever Native American tribe they found, or European, how much European they have in them. You know, you've seen the famous people, Professor Lewis Gates, doing their DNA profiles and what have you. So I tried to find, they're saying that this was, and I could find this nowhere but on these type of sites, Melanin Man and other, sites that anybody can put something up on the internet and create a website, but doesn't mean that they're a credible source or an authority on the subject matter that they discussing. But this is a straight up fraud. But when you click on Better News, Be Better News, which is misspelling the word better, but it's BBETER news.com. As you can see, it was hosted on what looks like, I think those, I'm not sure those are Japanese characters or Chinese characters, but apparently was hosted on an Asian server and it's no longer there. But again, you could do your own search. There is no such DNA evidence showing this. This is a complete fabrication. All right, and the source that they're using is not a credible source. All right, so, and it doesn't even exist. And that's not even how they're spelling better correctly, but in the URL of the site they're linking to is using only one T. So there's no DNA evidence, but here we go. They use this one clip. Malcolm X says African Americans are Aborigines. So, this is what started me on my search to debunk these unprovable theories that's just wasting people's times. Again, I'm not doubting anyone who says they have Native American blood, but a lot of these people are saying that in an anti-black fashion, anti-African fashion, to call other people like myself, like other people who recognize their genetic links to Africa, cultural links to Africa, to ridicule us. Okay, so here, this was on another website, but it's a YouTube video they linking to. Now look at this background. This is important. Look at the background of where Malcolm X is giving this speech that's being recorded. Now, if you go down, I found another clip that's longer. Same background, right? Same background. Okay, so let's go up and play what they're posting to their sites. It's just 28 seconds, 27 seconds. This was on the same video, was on the other site.
Aborigines, which means what? Black folks. You never find a white Aborigine. Aborigines are called natives, or they're always dark-skinned people. You and I are Aborigines, but you don't like to be called an Aborigine.
Okay, now again, it's entirely possible that Malcolm X was misusing the term Aborigine, and he wasn't using it in the context of Webster's dictionary or any other dictionary. Again, Aborigine means the earliest settlers, but that can apply to African Americans, considering that African Americans didn't just come here as victims of slavery, but some came over the way other poor Europeans or other Europeans who didn't have the money to pay for the trip to the quote-unquote newfound land in the Americas to go over and settle it. Well, you had African Americans do that as well. Look up John Punch, who is actually, Barack Obama is a descendant of his, and he was the first indentured servant sentenced in a colonial court to a lifetime of servitude or a lifetime of slavery. That's an ancestor of Barack Obama, interestingly, through his white mama, but this was an African man. This was a black man. And, that is some key piece of case law right there when we're talking about colonial law. But anyway, Aborigine means the earliest inhabitants. So it's possible that Africans can be, but again, I could not find the entire video. I think this was something someone told me, like a 3-hour speech or what have you. But within the same speech though, Malcolm X is talking about your roots in Africa.
We're African, and we happen to be in America. We're not American. We are people who formerly were Africans who were kidnapped and brought to America. Our forefathers weren't the Pilgrims. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock was landed on us. We were brought here against our will. We were not brought here to be made citizens. We were not brought here to enjoy the constitutional gifts that they speak so beautifully about today. And because we weren't brought here to be made citizens today, now that we've become awakened to some degree and we begin to ask for those things which they say are supposedly for Americans, they look upon us with hostility and unfriendliness.
Okay, we're going to stop it there. So clearly you hear Malcolm X saying that he's talking to a particular audience. He's talking to Black Americans. He's speaking as a minister at that time of an organization that promoted the Nation of Islam, that promoted Black Americans' ties to Africa, being African descendant people. He doesn't say we were kidnapped in America, taken to Africa, and then brought back to America and called Africans. He ain't saying none of that. And so even after he left the Nation of Islam and he founded what? The Organization for Aboriginal, what was it? The Organization for the Unity of Aboriginal Americans, or was it the Organization for the Unity of Afro-Americans? Okay? Was it the OAAU, or was it and meaning Africa, or was it standing for Aboriginal? No, he says Africa in the organization that he founded shortly prior to his assassination, shortly after, prior to his assassination. So again, this is intellectual dishonesty. I would even say it's just unethical. And it is dangerous. It's dangerous. Whenever you promote ignorance, whenever you promote disinformation and unsuspecting, vulnerable people are then taught to believe ridiculous theories without any proof and easily debunked, you're wasting people's time and you're giving them, making them give their energy to something that's not going to solve anybody's problem. It's not based in any kind of reality, and regardless of whether you call yourself an African American, an Aboriginal American, a copper colored person, what Daniel Webster, that white man, said about early Americans, not just North America but South America as well. I mean, it's time out for this, and it's just a shame that in the 21st century, in 2018, we got to address this sort of ignorance. The internet is a double-edged sword. You can find a lot of information that you wouldn't have been privy to outside of a book that you may not have had access to, and people have put this stuff online. But also, since it's an open internet, people can put all kind of false doctrines, pseudo history, and acts of fraud, acts of academic fraud, if you will, by taking 28 seconds from a long speech to where we don't get the context of what he mean by Aborigine, and whether or not, regardless if he's using it out of context or outside the parameters of the dictionary, saying that Aborigine is the earliest inhabitants. It's just really intellectually dishonest. I can't find enough words or terms to just say how dishonest and despicable this type of deception is. So this has been Scotty Reed with the Black Talk Radio News Commentary. Please remember to support independent black media. You can make a donation to our nonprofit Black Talk Media Project, as we provide safe digital spaces in the form of social networks and digital radio and podcasting platforms, and trying to put in research and bring you news and information. So it takes time to make this. It takes resources. So please help provide some of those resources by making a donation today. This is Scotty. Peace and blessings to all.